Hey Sunrise, it's Andrew here with your small group questions for this week. So we bring our series on the Christian home to a close. And to do so, we'll be in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Specifically, we're going to be talking about unmarried. So what does it mean to be unmarried? And so in this text, we're going to kind of look at what that Christian home looks like and how it's different. So the first thing in the text is we see Paul gives his opinion on how this works itself out, how unmarried can live the Christian faith well. And also we'll see that it is not a less than state, but Paul will even say it is an encouraged state of being. So based on the text before us, first thing we have is Paul gives them an encouragement to take stock of their surroundings and making a decision of to be married or to remain unmarried. Why is that important? What is the significance of taking stock of the current situation around his life? What is it, especially when we think about the fact that we live in the last age? What's the significance of those thoughts that go into the choice to be married or not married? Then in that he gives an encouragement. He looks at the fact that when it comes to being married, there is a different struggle that exists for those who are married than those who aren't married. What is the validity of these things as we dive into it? And why do we sometimes forget about those truths? Why is it easier to glamorize both states of being? For those who are married to look at singleness as somehow a better state, and those who are single to look at marriage as somehow a better state. What is it that we are doing in those moments? Specifically, as we see the rest of that portion of the text, as he calls those who are married to live as if they're not married, and those who mourn as if they don't mourn. What's Paul getting at in this as it connects this idea of singleness and marriage? And so as you think about those things, the grounding principle of our faith in Christ, he then moves to the fact of not being anxious. He then encourages them, how do we live out the faith well for those who are unmarried? What is the benefits that you have in living out the Christian faith that married people don't? How is it different to be able to use that singleness well? And so working through that, we then have these admonitions to be wise in our decisions, specifically about marriage. Again, thinking about being married or remain single or how life works out for you in the state that God has placed you. Where does wisdom come into play? What are some bad reasons to get married? What are some bad reasons to stay single? What are some bad reasons that how we use these two states that aren't glorifying to God? And as we wrap up the whole series, we go backwards a little bit into 17 through 24 in this idea of contentment. Paul has this admonition between the long speech on what marriage looks like and then what unmarried life looks like, with this state of this illustration of slaves and free men, and circumcised and uncircumcised, making this point to be content in the place that God has you. Why is it important that we find our grounding in all of life, first and foremost, in Christ? And how does that shape everything else that we've discussed over the last 5 weeks about the Christian home? How does that shape how we live, work, breathe, do ministry together, live out our lives at home together? How are all of those things shaped by that foundational truth that he lays out for us in 17 and 24? Hope you'll spend some time in the text, come hear the word proclaimed on Sunday, and then again, as we work through these things in our small groups, really diving into what the Christian life looks like for those who are unmarried and how to do it well. Can't wait to worship with you guys on Sunday. See you soon.